Hello again. The UN brokered talks in Sudan. Will they yield the desired results, and what is at stake? The United Nations has announced it would hold talks in Sudan to try to get the country's democratic transition back on track after it was derailed by an October military coup. To help us with some analysis to understand what's at stake here, I'm joined by Kingsley Mamabolo, a former joint AU-UN envoy to Sudan. Mr. Mamabolo, good afternoon, and thank you very much for your time. How important is it that the UN is now trying to promote the talks there in Sudan currently?
Thank you very much, Brother Dan, and good afternoon to your viewers, your listeners. Well, let me say it's important that Sudan gets liberated from the coup, the military, and so on, because what you have there is Sudan is bordering with about 7 countries, all of which have their own problems in East Africa. I mean, you have South Sudan, you have Eritrea, you have Ethiopia, Central African Republic, Libya, Egypt, and so on. And so Sudan holds a central position. If the United Nations can resuscitate the talks, as they've almost collapsed by now, and the international community comes in, and we have a stable Sudan and a stable East Africa, the result of that is that the continent as well will benefit from that.
What would need to happen for there to be success in these talks? Already there are reports coming out of Sudan that whilst some of the organizations that have been protesting are supporting the UN effort and are welcoming it, there are some dissenting voices already.
Well, let me say the motive force behind all this are the people. As you know, the people have made the situation in Sudan to be what it is now. We have, for a very long time, Sudan has been under some Islamic-oriented dictatorship, military dictatorship, if you want. And the last one was the former dictator Omar Bashir. And so you now have a situation where the people couldn't take it any longer, and they rose up. And what was interesting about this movement of the people was women's participation. We actually saw women leading the struggle in Sudan. Now, there was a partnership, a transitional arrangement that has been agreed upon. Part of the partners of the transitional arrangement are the military themselves. You had the military breaking away from Omar Bashir and saying, we want to be with the people. And so the understanding, this partnership of the military with the people, is that eventually power will be transferred to the people. But what has happened was just right in the middle of this transitional arrangement, the military reneged on their agreement and decided that they want to usurp power and that they should be in charge for the entire period of the transitional arrangement. The agreement was that the military would be there at the head of this transitional government for about 21 months, and that the civilians would take over. And so you now have a standoff, you have a serious problem, which the international community, including the United Nations, is trying to ensure, because we don't want to see a bloodbath in Sudan. I note the UN has been very seriously involved, but we also want to see the AU get involved and other entities like the EU and many others. In fact, the entire international community. I would say it is in the interest of all of us that Sudan avoids a bloodbath and that the transitional arrangement, as propagated by the UN and everybody, succeeds to ensure that we have a peaceful transition from military dictatorship to the people of Sudan.
And very briefly, Ambassador Mamabolo, what will it take? I mean, will it take everybody to support the UN initiative for these efforts to produce the desired results?
Indeed, we would need to see the AU active. Some countries in Africa are already calling for involvement of the UN. They are even going to the extent of saying what we actually need is a peacekeeping force in Sudan. The nature of that could be debated. Will it be under Chapter 7 or Chapter 6 or whatever? But that the UN must get involved because, as you know, the UN is responsible for international peace and security in the world, in the whole globe. And so their involvement must be supported by the Africans themselves because we are also members of the United Nations. But I would say also the entire international community.
Ambassador Kingsley Mamabolo, a former joint AU-UN envoy to Sudan, just giving us some of his thoughts and insight about the efforts there by the United Nations to bring peace to Sudan.